Welcome back to Beyond Wisdom, where we explore timeless truths for a more peaceful and meaningful life. Today's topic might seem surprising at first. We often think of philosophers as seekers of truth, as people hunting for answers. But that's not quite right. At their core, philosophers don't chase truth. They question everything. And in a world filled with noise, certainty, and fast opinions, this ancient habit of questioning might just be one of the most powerful tools we have to stay grounded, clear-minded, and truly free. Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, is often remembered not for the answers he gave, but for the questions he asked. He wandered the streets of Athens, not with lectures, but with quiet, persistent inquiries. He would ask things like, what is justice? What is courage? What is the good life? Not to test others, but to probe the deeper meaning of what we take for granted. He believed that wisdom began with recognizing our own ignorance. In fact, when the Oracle of Delphi declared that no one was wiser than Socrates, he didn't accept the praise. Instead, he tried to disprove it, only to find that others claimed to know what they did not, while he knew that he did not know. In a world full of people desperate to be right, Socrates stood out for being deeply comfortable with not knowing. That comfort with uncertainty, with dwelling in the question, is where real clarity begins. We live in a time of strong opinions and louder voices. People are quick to assert, to label, to explain. But the ancient philosophers warned us about the danger of this kind of certainty. The Stoic Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." When we're certain, we stop listening. When we think we found the truth, we stop looking. Many philosophers, from the ancient Greeks to the Zen masters of the East, have understood that rigid belief is often the enemy of wisdom. True understanding doesn't come from locking down an answer. It comes from holding questions gently, turning them over in the mind, and allowing space for mystery. When we let go of the need to be certain, we start to see with new eyes. Philosophy isn't fast. It's not made for quick reactions or instant opinions. It invites us to pause, to slow our thinking. In ancient China, the philosopher Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, a series of short verses that seem more like puzzles than teachings. One verse says, "Knowing is not knowing. Not knowing is true knowledge." These paradoxes aren't meant to confuse. They're meant to interrupt the rush of certainty. When we sit with a deep question, not to answer it, but to live with it, something shifts. We become less reactive, less defensive, more open. And in that space, new insights often emerge, not because we forced them, but because we gave them room. The pursuit of truth can feel like trying to reach a mountaintop, a place where everything finally makes sense. But, many philosophers suggest truth is not out there to be conquered. It's more like a mirror that reflects how we see, not just what we see. Take the Buddhist idea of beginner's mind, the idea that wisdom begins not in expertise, but in wonder. When a student asked the Zen master Shunryu Suzuki why he always answered with more questions, he said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's there are few." Truth, in this sense, is not a fixed object. It's a living process. The moment we think we've grasped it completely, it slips away. But when we look inward and question our own filters, our habits, our assumptions, we get closer to something real. For the ancient philosophers, philosophy wasn't just a subject. It was a way of being. The Roman Stoic Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire, spent his nights writing meditations not to teach others, but to question himself. He would ask, "Am I acting with justice? Am I driven by ego? Am I seeing clearly or through fear?" These questions shaped how he lived, how he ruled, how he responded to hardship. Likewise, in the Indian tradition, the Bhagavad Gita shows a warrior, Arjuna, paralyzed by doubt, not told what to do, but guided through inquiry by the god Krishna. These stories remind us that the examined life, as Socrates called it, is not about finding the right answers, but about asking the right questions in the right spirit. Questions that humble us, that soften us, that bring us closer to ourselves. It's tempting to think that safety lies in knowing, in locking down the facts, the rules, the path. But honestly, history shows that some of the greatest harm has come not from doubt, but from false certainty. Wars, dogma, oppression. These are often rooted in the belief that one group has the truth and others do not. Philosophy reminds us that freedom lies in uncertainty, not the paralyzing kind, but the gentle kind that keeps us curious. When we stop demanding certainty from life, we begin to see more clearly. We become less attached to being right and more interested in being wise. And wisdom, more often than not, begins with a simple question: could I be wrong? There's something beautiful about the way questions bring people together. When we share opinions, we often argue. But when we share questions, we explore. In ancient symposiums, quiet gatherings under the stars, philosophers would share wine, food, and questions, not to prove anything, just to wonder together. Today, when conversation often feels like debate, we can return to that spirit. To ask someone sincerely, "What do you think?" or "How do you see it?" can be an invitation to closeness. Questioning, when done with humility, is a bridge, a way to connect not just ideas, but hearts. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote to a young writer, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves." There's a deep wisdom in that. Not every question has an answer. Not every mystery needs to be solved. Sometimes we live better, more fully, by holding the question close, like a quiet companion. The philosophers of old didn't question because they were lost. They questioned because they were awake. In a world obsessed with quick answers, they remind us that a deeper life begins not with knowing, but with wondering. Ultimately, the greatest truths often emerge not through discovery, but through humility, through the willingness to ask, to wait, and to sit in silence. Philosophy isn't about chasing truth like a prize. It's about walking slowly, mindfully, through the forest of questions. And in that stillness, we may begin to hear something quieter than certainty, the gentle voice of wisdom. What's one question you've been carrying lately? Not to answer, but to live with. Share it in the comments. We'd love to hear. Thanks for watching. If this video brought you value, subscribe to Beyond Wisdom. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and stay wise.